I got plenty of nothing and
Yes.
nothing's
Nothing
and
got
nothing's
plenty of
plenty
me.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
an old favorite.
Yeah.
Okay, it's live stream.
Okay, so we are on YouTube. So today is the first Monday and the first day of the month of December. And as has become our habit, each of the members present has gathered together one or two items to share with the group to kind of widen our horizons. And so, with that being said, the procedure is pretty simple. We have the first person present one of their items, and then we talk about it a bit, and then we move on to the next. And Ann is up, the Ann D is up first today.
Okay. Okay. I chose a poem by an American poet that I heard recently. I was listening to a podcast, Poetry Unbound. It's a guy called Patrick O'Toole. And the only reason I chose it is because I just laughed so much.
Oh, good.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So the poet is Denise Duhamel. Any of you heard of her? No?
No.
It's called How It Will End. We're walking on the boardwalk, but stop when we see a lifeguard and his girlfriend fighting. We can't hear what they're saying, but it is as good as a movie. We sit on a bench to find out how it will end. I can tell by her body language he's done something really bad. She stands at the bottom of the ramp that leads to his hut. He tries to walk halfway down to meet her, but she keeps signaling, "Don't come closer." My husband says, "Boy, he's sure in for it." And I say, "He deserves whatever's coming to him." My husband thinks the lifeguard's cheated, but I think she's sick of him only working part-time, or maybe he forgot to put the rent in the mail. The lifeguard tries to reach out, and she holds her hand like Diana Ross when she performed Stop in the Name of Love. The red flag that slaps against his station means strong currents. She has to just get it out of her system, my husband laughs. But I'm not laughing. I start to coach the girl to leave her no good lifeguard. But my husband predicts she'll never leave. I'm angry at him for seeing glee in their situation and say, "That's your problem. You think every fight is funny. You never take her seriously." And he says, "You never ever give the guy a chance. You're always nagging. So how can he tell the real issues from the nitpicking?" And I say, "She doesn't nitpick." And he says, "Oh, really? Maybe he should stop recording her tirades." And I say, "Maybe he should help out more." And he says, "Maybe she should be more supportive." And I say, "Do you mean supportive or do you mean support him?" And my husband says, and he's doing the best he can, that he's a lifeguard for Christ's sake. And I say that her job is much harder, that she's a waitress who works night carrying heavy trays and is hit on all the time by creepy tourists. And he just sits there most days napping and listening to Power 96. And then, oh, he gets to be the big hero, blowing his whistle and running into the water to save beach bunnies who flatter him. And my husband says, "It's not as though she's Miss Innocence. And what about the way she flirts, giving free refills when our boss isn't looking, or cutting extra large pieces of pie to get bigger tips? Oh no, she wouldn't do that 'cause she's a saint and he's the devil." And I say, "I don't know why you can't just admit he's a jerk." And my husband says, "Don't know why you can't admit she's a killjoy." And then out of the blue, the couple is making up. The red flag flutters and then hangs limp. And she has her arms around his neck and is crying into his shoulder. And he whisks her up into his hut. And we look around, but nobody is watching us. And I
That
was
is
out, very
very,
funny. And I was out walking. I must have looked like a loony. And I
yeah.
just laughed and laughed and laughed.
Oh,
As obviously it's their problems,
oh,
not the lifeguard.
you read
Uh,
that real well, Anne. You really,
okay.
yeah.
Mhm,
It's just
mhm.
one of those really funny ones.
It's true. And,
But it's got an
very-
edge to it of, you've seen that kind of argument or behavior.
Hmm.
The
I mean, they can't hear
accusatory.
what's going on. It's a movie, but so they're just
Yeah,
actually projecting their problems
Yeah.
onto
Yeah.
the other two.
Exactly.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
Exactly.
it's just so funny.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that was her, Denise Duhamel. I put her in here. You might know her. Find out.
So would you write her name in the chat?
Yeah, I will. I'm
I'm
just
not
doing
familiar
that.
with her at all.
Hmm. Yeah, that's it. Oh no,
Denise?
I spelled it wrong. No, I spelled it wrong.
Oh, okay. Well,
We'll delete that one.
okay.
Do. Delete. Probably predict text. I'll blame. No, that's it.
DeHamel.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. Yeah, I like that poem a lot because it also illustrates the way us human beings have of projecting our own thing on whatever we happen to
We
be
have to. Exactly.
experiencing.
Mm.
We live in our own little world, so to speak. So that's
Okay.
good. That's good. And this is from a book of poems by her, or this was just a poem
No,
you
I was just
found in
listening
memory?
to. I was listening to a podcast
Okay.
called Poetry Unbound, and it's an Irish guy. What's I say his name is Padraig O'Tuama.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm going to have to check out more. It's just one I just came across
Okay.
by accident, just by googling in poetry.
Okay. And somebody on the podcast
He's
read
reading.
it?
He read this poem out.
He read the poem out. Okay.
So I had to come home and look it up.
Happy is the poet who gets their poetry read,
I'd say so.
particularly read by somebody out loud on a medium.
Oh, is that her?
Okay.
Yeah.
Up her. I got a 1 second look at Denise. There she goes.
Okay.
Okay.
I should have looked her up.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, Des, I guess we are ready for you.
Hey, this is an Irish poem, English translation. Is Misha Raftery an Filla lán dúchais is grá, le súile gan solas, le ciúnas gan crá. Ag dul siar meister le solas macrí, fan agus tíirseach go deireadh muslí. Fécin is mai is macúil de falla, ag sinnamh ceoim de fucky falla. The English version of that is, I'm Raftery the poet, full of hope and love, eyes without sight, silence without torment. Going west on my journey, by the light of my heart, weary and tired to the end of my road. Behold me now with my back to the wall, playing music to empty pockets. This fellow Raftery was one of 9 siblings born near Kiltima, County Mayo. When he was a young boy, smallpox hit his village. All 8 of his siblings died and he was left blind.
Wow.
He lived his life as a wandering poet minstrel. Raftery, he was an Irish language poet whose work reflected rural life, landscape and culture of his time. That was the first part of the 19th century. Being blind, he never wrote down any of his poems, and it seems none of his poetry was ever written down during his lifetime. They were nevertheless collected by Douglas Hyde and Lady Gregory and others who published them. In our school days, way back when, there was hardly a child in Ireland who didn't know this poem. It was part of our childhood. In the Gaelic tradition, the poet was a highly respected and powerful figure holding a status comparable to a king or a bishop. Their functions extended far beyond composing verse. They served as historians, genealogists, and legal recorders, and were crucial in political and social life. This particular poem gives rise to something of a romantic myth in which the blind minstrel makes his way through a darkened world. And that's how we knew it. The trouble is, it ran counter to the whole tradition of the Gaelic idea of a poet and his function. Recently, these 12 lines have been subjected to a cold, critical analysis, which resulted in 8 of them at least were not the work of Raftery. It's now known that Raftery's poet, much like Homer's, was honed to brilliance by many hands. Just one interesting thing that I came across when I was looking through this, that Bob Dylan, when he released his album Rough and Rowdy Ways in 2020, the opening track called I Contain Multitudes contains the lines, "Follow me close, I'm going to Ballynalee." Now, this Ballynalee is presumed to reference Rafferty's song, The Lass from Ballynalee. Agus glús go lalum go baile uli, so walk with me to Ballynalee. It's just an interesting side issue on the whole thing.
Des, would you read that over again in English?
Well, indeed, yeah. I'm Raftery the poet, full of hope and love. Eyes without sight, silence without torment. Going west on my journey by the light of my heart, weary and tired to the end of my road. Behold me now with my back to the wall, playing music to empty pockets. I mean, it is pretty amazing that this, back in the day, was such a total representation of Irish poetry. And yet it was quite manufactured by so many different people. And it was also contrary to the tradition of the Irish poet back through the centuries. Quite different.
It's a very moving poem.
Yeah.
Where as short as it is, there's so much in it.
So I have a question. Have any of you been present when an traditional Irish storyteller or poet gave a presentation in a residence, as opposed to a tavern or a theater?
No.
Or a public place?
I was just at a wonderful event, and it happens, I think, every month. It was in Westport, Ireland, and it was at Matt Malloy's bar. It's a back room, and it was there were so many people there. You know, if you were late, you couldn't get in. But what it was is people came up and played music or sang or danced or recited original poetry. It was there was a sense of privacy about the environment and intimacy. I think people were testing out ideas that they had about their lives or loves. And it was very, and the audience was very respectful, but I left with that, like a sense of just this privacy that people were allowed and took advantage of in that setting and with the people who were there. I've never been to something like that in America.
I and the family, we had a tradition in the 90s of going to the Kerrville Folk Festival, which is actually a festival that runs for 3 weeks, mainly on weekends, but we would go for the whole thing. We would pack up our camping gear and with some other families would meet there. And for 2 years, they had a thing called Festival of the Eagle, which is during the weekdays. Native Americans took over the festival and presented a lot of stories and music and fire ceremonies and all this stuff. Unfortunately, after the second year, there was conflict within the Native American community, and they had to stop. But for those 2 years, it was very magical, and there were not really that many people there, and we got to really sit up close and to the performances, and it was fantastic. And I felt very fortunate that we were able to do that. Yeah. hmm And I have to say that my view of much of traditional storytelling in Ireland is actually presented to me by probably someone who would be considered a very bad novelist. I believe his name was Rutherford, and he wrote a 2-volume history on Irish history going back to the early days, and he would tell it through people. And one of the people that he told it through was an itinerant Irish storyteller who's would wander through the countryside, and he would go knock on doors and ask for hospitality. And there would be families that would give him a place to stay, and then they would notify the neighborhood that there was a storyteller in the area and would be presenting stories. I thought it was I don't know how accurate it was, but it was certainly in the novel was quite marvelous. And I envy opportunities like that. Um, yeah, it's very good. And
The Irish word for that kind of thing he would be a Shanachie,
okay,
old storyteller.
uh-huh. Yeah, it was good. It was good. And it's interesting that he was blind, because actually many of the great blues singers in the United States, in Texas, Mississippi, et cetera, they were blind. That was one way that the blind, particularly blind minority people, could earn kind of a living, largely standing on street corners singing. And we were fortunate that there's a fellow by the name of Alan Lomax who um, got some of the first tape recorders and would go and record these people. And if you go to the Library of Congress, I believe you can find all of his recordings these days. He also would go into the South, and he would basically go to an area of, say, Mississippi, and tell people that he was recording the old songs, and did they know anybody that they would recommend that he record. And so he did that and performed a marvelous service for everyone. For Yeah, it's good. Yeah. If we have no other comments or questions or observations, we're ready for Joan.
Okay, I brought some haiku, and I was going to read a few of them from this book and a few of my own.
Oh, great.
Haiku is traditionally 3 lines, 5 syllables in the first line, 7 in the second, and 5 in the third. People who write haiku in English take a little, what would you call it?
Liberties.
Liberty with that, because those rules were set up in Japan,
Mhm.
and their language allows that to work better for them than it does in English. However, the
Mhm.
ones I have written are 575 syllables. But first, I want to read a few from this book. Um, it's kind of mixed. Some of them are old ones, and some of them are new. Um, I'll read a few. Full moon over my father's orchard, the thump of an apple. If you will notice that these haiku are written in the present tense, which makes it more not intimate, but intense, really, because it's more you are there. Uh,
Mhm.
as raindrops diminish, I hear the tapping of the monk's wooden bell. Uh, quieting the mind deep in the forest, water drips. Another one here. I actually find these a little disappointing, to tell you the truth. Uh, but sweet chestnut in flower, a curved bough holding the evening sun. I'll do one more, not that one. Oh, this one I like. Embers die, the chair where the friend sat fills with moonlight.
Mhm.
And this one I like too. Lantern on an old road, it gathers round so much night. And then I have a few of my own. I tried working on them. I should go back and try and work some more, but haven't. Uh, Sing lute of kings and castles, moats and mead. I sit among tapestries. That's one. Speeding in rock pools, atom-sized life create wakes that crisscross the water. And this next one, I should give it a title, Hummingbirds, so there's some idea what's happening. Whirs lustfully in, proboscis in hibiscus, patio porno. Hmm. Uh, this brotherhood of geese silently select a leader, lift, soar, and follow him south. A bay of white gulls, like the sailboats of children, floating out to sea. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, the haiku. I'm a big fan of haiku.
Are you?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't write
Interesting.
many. Every once in a blue moon I will write them. But I like haiku for the same reason that I like the I Ching, because of all the concrete images in there.
Well, it's kind of fun to try and write it. Uh,
Mhm.
and condense an image into a few syllables.
Mhm.
I like your observation of birds,
Of what
of the birds taking off.
oh yeah.
I was just wondering, Joan, if you have published.
Oh no. No. Thank you for the thought, Donna. I do have, I think in the next couple of weeks, I have poems that are really good by a male friend and a female friend that I think I will bring next week, and they are published
Okay, so I assume by next week you actually mean next month on,
next month. Yeah.
okay. All right, well, okay, I guess it's my turn.
Mhm.
So, a little confession. Okay, I'm a thief. I read to steal language. And I particularly like concrete metaphors. As I've mentioned to Joan, I like haiku and I like the I Ching, which some people consider a fortune-telling book. I don't use, when I was young, I used it for fortune-telling. I don't use it for that anymore. But almost every day I read something from the I Ching.
What is each?
It's called the
Before
Book
you,
of Changes.
I don't know what that is.
It's one of the four traditional Confucian classics
Mhm.
that when people were studying to take they would study, I think, the Book of History, the I Ching, the Book of Poetry, and I think the Book of Rites. Those were the four classics. And when I was a young man, a long time ago, the I Ching was favored by some, and I was one of those. And, I used it as a fortune-telling book. But what I discovered over the decades was what I really liked about it was all of its images were taken from nature and they were made concrete. So what I have to present today is actually by an American Jungian psychologist, James Hillman, who, interestingly enough, one of the foremost Jungian institutes, this is after Carl Jung, was in Dallas, Texas, of all places. Now, Dallas is considered by many to be the most barbaric of cities. Barbaric in the sense that it's all business. And I always used to say, and I lived in Dallas for some time, and my grandparents were from Dallas. Every hot shot in the South would go to Dallas to seek their fortune. So the traffic in Dallas was always more aggressive and faster because everybody was, rushing to get their fortunes. But in the middle of this, in Dallas, was the Jungian Institute with James Hillman. And James Hillman, I would say, has the soul of a poet. And he wrote a book called Alchemical, I think it's Alchemical Psychology. And what I'm going to read is a little part of that book that has to do with fire. So let me get to that. Okay. If alchemy is the art of fire, an alchemist, artist of fire, as many texts repeat, then the alchemist must be able to know all kinds of fire, degrees of fire, sources of fire, fuels of fire. And the alchemist must be able to fight fire with fire, using his own fire to operate upon the fires with which he's operating, working the fire by means of fire. Nature works on nature. Alchemy, an art of nature, a natural art that raises the temperature of nature. Nature's time is extremely long, and the fashion of her concoction uniform, and her fire very slow. That of art, on the other hand, is short. Heating is controlled by the wit of the artist, as the fire also is made intenser or milder. Whereas science measures heat with degrees of temperature, alchemy observes the different kinds of heat, the qualities of heat. Heat increases as the work proceeds, rising through 4 classic stages. Each of these is twice as great as the preceding, said Mylius. Different texts describe the 4 with different images, but the following occur frequently. A brooding hen, slow and mild as of the flesh. The sun in June, great and strong, calcining fire, burning and vehement, able to melt lead or fuse iron. Another lists the 4 as water bath, ash bath, sand bath, and naked flame. Rutland's dictionary fills out the 4 stages with rich descriptions. The first grade is very slow, and it is like an inactive lukewarmness. It is called the heat of tepid bath, of excrement, of digestion, of circulation, likened to the warmth generated by a fowl when hatching its young. Evidently, this fire is generated by brooding, digesting, and holding within the lower body its fermenting bowels and silent womb. Attitudes are lukewarm, diffident. Slowness and the restraint of activity all by themselves are able to develop heat. The second grade is fiercer, yet such that it's safe to the touch, and nor does it injure the hand. They call it the heat of ashes. Cinders, on account of their fineness, do not produce much air. Here we can note the second stage is fed very little fuel. It has little inspiration, no heavy breathing, instead a stifling dullness, dusty, ashen, dried out. Quote, I knew nothing of myself but the ashes. End of quote. New quote. Ash on an old man's sleeve is all the ash the burnt roses leave. This heat can be touched, handled, coming perhaps from sifting residues, a heat rising from the warmth of reminiscences, mixing memory and desire. Read Eliot, Proust, read Akhmatova. The fierce heat of fine ashes unstirred by the breezes of fantasy. Why fierce? Because ash is the ultimate reduction, the bare soul, the last truth, all else dissolve. The ash is all, said Zosimus of Panoplus, the first alchemist, the discipline's patron authority. The Rosarium Philosophorum says ash endures. And Muhammad ibn Umayl, the 10th century Arab alchemist known to the Latin West as Zadis Senior, writes in his Tabula Chemica, burnt ash and the soul are the gold of the wise. Fierce, because we roast in our own base nature. The third grade will burn the hand and is compared to the boiling sand or iron files. Desiccation, a condition of soul known in the Middle Ages as cystitis, acedia, the dry depression of the soul forced by willful resolve to do its duty, the iron of Mars angry, the time in the endless desert under a relentless sun. This fire will burn the hand, so it cannot be handled. It is out of your hands. If the first stage was held in the body and the second in memory, this is the heat of desperate determination, an isolating anger that drives the work ever more hotly. The fourth is of the highest grade and is generally the most destructive. A living flame is produced from wood or coals. Bernardus of Treviso says the fourth is, quote, in iron or in the flame, end of quote. Besides the obvious association of iron and flame with smith in the forge, there is a degree of spirit. There is a warrior of the spirit implication in the third and fourth degrees. The tethered saints, ascetics, quote, it is death to the soul to become moist, end of quote, said Heraclitus, for whom fire was the primal principle. All the soul's stickiness is up in flames, vanished into thin air, and the smoky, oily, smelly worldliness of sulfuric desires have been purified. It is the change from ordinary sulfur to clear burning sulfur, ignis clair ardens, or extinguished fire, ignis extinctus, sulfur derived of its virtues. And I will stop there. So,
That
I
is
like, Joan?
difficult to interpret.
In the details, yes, you are absolutely correct.
Would you say it's philosophical? Would you say it's philosophical? Would you say that about it?
I think it's actually trying to draw us down into matter with more awareness, which is what, interestingly enough, the haiku is trying to do. The haiku is drawing us down into. So, particularly in modern life, we are speeding about so much that we hardly ever smell the roses or feel the material or pay attention to the details. And like the haiku, I think James Hillman is saying the details are extremely important. That actually life is in the details. It's not in the grand gestures. It's not in the abstract. So to me, I mean, just to take the word fire, if I just said fire, let's see, there are 7 of us, there would be 7 images of fire. And most of those images would be one image. And what I like about this is Hillman is expanding.
That I found that, confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's complex.
Frost.
Yes, very complex.
Robert Frost's poems, some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice, but what I've tasted of desire, I side with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that ice is also great and would suffice. It's a poem by Frost, but fire being one of the elements. But I always think that water puts out fire, and yet fire is so purifying. And simple thing of sitting in front of a fire. I used to have a dog, and he would sit it's the only dog I ever saw. He would sit with his nose right against the flame of the range, and he would just stare into it, and he'd never move, you know. So it used to fascinate me. I have to step over him, and he wouldn't turn. But he's the only dog I ever had that did that. But he obviously was some kind of poet and scientist and all wrapped into one.
Or I'd say a philosopher, Tom.
Sorry, Donna.
Yes.
I'd say a philosopher.
And a philosopher, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Don't
like
you
one
wish-
of-
Don't you wish you could have asked him questions?
Yeah.
And his name, I called him Moses. So yeah, maybe there was something in that as well.
Well, certainly we've seen the dog. Oh, Anna, you are
I had a
muted.
phone call. I said he knew how to capture attention for an audience.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Well, I would just say Hillman is actually, trying. He does this not only for all of the basic elements, but he does it for
Yeah.
relationships between the basic elements. And his approach is we live too simply. That our thought has become too brutish in the sense that we tend to make a word, like I say, a word like fire, and we have limited at any one time. Of course, there are different definitions of fire that we can have over life, but we tend to focus on one definition and a very limited definition. In alchemical psychology, he is saying that the benefit of the alchemist is not that they knew what they were doing. The benefit of the alchemist is that they were very poetical in their own way. And they can present us with a lot of subtleties of the world that we live in. And so, yeah, reading it without the text in front of you is particularly difficult. My apologies for that. But for the possible person who might be interested, I can certainly recommend Alchemical Psychology by Hillman. That it's quite fun and interesting, and I find broadening to read.
Yeah, I think to read and to take it into your life and live with all those concepts, you'd find communication very, very difficult.
Well, one always has to decide
Yeah.
at what level one is going to use their language for sociality. Okay, so obviously when I went dancing on Saturday night, I did not get into any discussions about alchemical psychology.
You're more in the vein of Dance Me to the End of Love. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, right, yes. Yeah. But I find for my own contemplation, and I figure you all are reasonably contemplative people, that that Hillman might be of interest to one or two of you to kind of sit down with every once in a while. I don't think anybody could read this book in one go. It's not that kind of book. It's like you read a sentence and then you go, whoa, okay.
That's it
You
for
better
today.
digest that. All right. Well, we are up to Tom Kennedy at this point.
Sorry. Could I just ask Duncan? You mentioned there was it 7 aspects of fire? Yeah, and it brought me back to Anne's poem where she had 2 different people watching the same thing and getting 2 totally different versions. And you put then the 7 aspects of fire viewed by 7 people would not necessarily all be the same.
That's true. And that's actually one of the major points that Hillman is making in the book. That he is making the point over and over again that we tend to have a hardening of the categories. But if you are so inclined that you can use alchemical language to loosen things up. In fact, he had an expression that in order to really understand things, you have to let them soften and turn to flowing water.
Mhm.
That's the beginning of understanding.
Yeah. It has been a bit of a bedbug of mine that legislation, that the more you define something, the more you restrict it. And I find that legislators really fall into this terribly, that they expect to solve a problem simply by legislating for it. But it
Yeah,
is
this is
interesting that there were as many as 7 aspects on there in fire. Yes, that I find very interesting.
Yeah, I always used to say, younger, I haven't said this in a long time, that by the time they pass a law, the reason they pass the law is over.
Yeah,
I mean,
it,
ultimately, the political solution is is tolerance, compassion, and attempted understanding other people around us. That's ultimately what we're trying for, and that the legal system is at best a halfway step, just to kind of keep things from completely falling apart. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. And it's true from my opinion. I need to keep saying, in my opinion, that language is like the law. Language is very, very useful, but it is restricting.
Mhm.
And we both need to learn how to use the tool of language and to free ourselves of the tool of language.
rarely in translation. Yeah.
Duncan, would you say that of James Joyce?
Well, if you know that I always say that James Joyce is trying to teach us about language, and he's trying to teach us about rhetoric. That's you can look at Ulysses in particular as a intense course of study in rhetoric, and
Not
and
sure
you
I buy into that fully.
say that
I,
again.
I said, not sure I buy into that explanation fully. Sorry, as you would say yourself, in your opinion. In my opinion, I would have thought that Joyce's use of language was a freeing, liberating form, not something that constrains us.
Yes, I totally agree.
Well,
This is why I continue to study Joyce regularly, because he every time I read him, he's kind of opening me up.
hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we're on the
think
same page.
somebody said to Joyce about Finnegan's Wake, like at that time, they said that about 500,000 words in the English language, were they not enough for you? And he said they were okay, but they weren't the right ones. So yeah, he kind of invented. He is a master of language, but I do think, as Donna said, language is liberating. And it's endless. Words are endless. What we can do with them, and what they give us back. Yeah.
Mhm. Speaking of words, are we ready for words from Tom
Yeah.
Kennedy?
And I'm going to read something by someone who knew a fair bit about language, T.S. Eliot, and I'm going to read Journey of the Magi. A cold coming we had of it, just the worst time of the year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter. And the camels galled, sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted the summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the camel men cursing and grumbling, and running away and wanting their liquor and women, and the night fires going out and the lack of shelters, and the cities hostile and the towns unfriendly, and the villages dirty and the charging high prices. A hard time we had of it. At the end, we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices singing in our ears, saying that this was all folly. Then at dawn, we came down to a temperate valley, wet below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and a watermill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky. And an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with vine leaves over the lintel, 6 hands at an open door, dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking the empty wineskins. But there was no information, and so we continued and arrived at evening, not a moment too soon, finding the place. It was, you may say, satisfactory. All this was a long time ago, I remember, and I would do it again, but set down this, where we led all that way for birth or death. There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence and no doubt. I had seen birth and death, but had thought they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another death. Yeah, so the journey of the Magi. So when Eliot was accepted into the Anglican Church in 1927, I think it was July 1927, he wrote that poem maybe about 3 months later, The Journey of the Magi. And it was published in what they called the Ariel Poems. They decided, I think it was Faber, decided to make a little booklet of 8 poems from different poets. It was Eliot said it was like a kind of Christmas card, and that they took 8 poems and done them up. And Eliot, that was the first of Eliot's poem, and that kind of series, the Ariel series, went on for about 5 years, and he contributed other poems in the next 5 years as well. Yeah. So yeah, he kind of. He, of course, in 1930, then, of course, he wrote Ash Wednesday as well. It's not something that you'd expect. I don't ever expect when I read that you know, when you read a story in the Bible, it's only in Matthew's Gospel, and where the 3 wise men bring the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and they're not named, but later they were given names, I think. But it's a kind of austere poem, and maybe much closer to the truth than the kind of images that we have of the 3 wise men coming along.
Yeah. Ariel and Ariel from the Tempest.
Yeah, and I mean, Ariel is one of those people from Shakespeare. I mean, Sylvia Plath, all her best poems were contained in the book Ariel, she called it.
That's
So
right.
Ariel was that little spirit in the tempest. Really caught the imagination of a lot of people and a lot of writers.
Mm.
And merrily, merrily shall I live now under the blossom that hangs on the bough. Yeah,
I took
it
up
was
Duncan's suggestion of watching Forbidden Planet. I found it.
okay. Yeah,
And I think, Duncan, you said that this was based on The Tempest, or, took inspiration
That's what,
from
yeah. Hmm.
that. And I could see the parallels, but I just
yeah.
thought it was such a funny movie, particularly with Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, it's a little dated for sure,
Yeah,
but
it's fun.
you have to imagine the effect of it on a pubescent boy
Yes,
at the time, and it
great,
had a very powerful effect on me. Although that, um, yeah.
great sound
So,
effects.
excuse me.
I said there were great sound effects, all these flying saucer effects that you get in old movies like that were wonderful.
Right. Well, that as dated as it is, uh, concerning AI, that's actually one of the things that gives me feelings of terror when we get to AI. Um,
Mm.
that whole thing. For those who don't know, of the human spirit is in this computerized type thing starts developing its own thought, and the negative side of our psychology destroys lots of stuff. So that, I think about AI that way. Okay, well, this sounds like a great idea, but when it comes to AI, I think of Forbidden Planet and the uh, Sorcerer's Apprentice from Disney.
Yeah,
Where things
There
just
was a
get.
report, sorry, there was a report came out during the week about AI, and some of the people who would know how to produce AI. They said that they have never yet been able to have AI produce a joke. They do not, they can't produce a sense of humor in AI.
All right, so can we use that as a test then of whether something is AI or not?
Data in Star Trek New Generation, he had no sense of humor either. And he used to try to tell jokes that he couldn't understand why nobody found them funny, because he had a logical mind.
Is this Dr. Spock by any chance?
No, Data, he was an android in Star Trek The New Generation.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
You mentioned there a moment ago. Um, where am I? Here, yes. There's a quotation on Joyce, but I thought when you were mentioning about Joyce and language of this quote from Ezra Pound. He had read a section or a copy of Finnegan's Wake, and he wrote to Joyce in November 1926, and he was commenting on the structure of the thing, and he said, "Nothing, so far as I can make out, nothing short of divine vision or a new cure for the clap can possibly be worth all the circumambient peripherization. I thought it was a very good way of looking at Finnegan's Wake.
I don't know if you've seen the Book of the Dark.
Oh,
If you really want to get into the weeds on Finnegan's Wake, I can.
But we were already there, Des.
Agree with it?
yeah.
Sorry, Donna?
We were already in the weeds, Finnegan's Wake.
Let me unblur my background. Oh, I didn't want to. Okay, so here we go. This is by John Bishop, who is a literature professor at the University of California in Berkeley, called The Book of the Dark. And it is, you can actually, if you want me to, I can send you a PDF of it and you can take a look at it. It's one of these works like Finnegan's Wake itself that, you know, you just can't ever complete the reading of it. But it's very interesting. And it actually fits in well with my thing about Hillman today, that Hillman is trying to, like Joyce and Hillman, Bishop is trying to get us to open up our language categories while not losing total control of the categories. I mean, language is extremely useful. It's just that if we take it too seriously, it can strangle us. So it's kind of a balance between helping us organize our view of the world and still leaving doors open to go explore different things. You know, Book of the Dark, John Bush and John Bishop. So I think. Oh, I had one question for Tom. Did not sometime in his life, did not T.S. Eliot go to North Africa to deal with his lung problems?
I think he did, yeah. Yeah, he did. Where did he go?
Tunisia, or someplace like that?
Tunisia, yeah. That's where he went, yeah.
Okay.
For a period.
But that was later in his life.
It was
long
later,
after
yeah.
he wrote that poem about the.
Yeah. Beckett used to go to Tunisia on holidays as well.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason. I don't think you could go to Tunisia now, I think with the status stuff. But I went there a long time ago to see the site of Carthage,
Mm-hmm.
which is in the town or the capital of Tunis. I think it's somewhere outside it, yeah. Yeah, but I don't think you could go there now. But I think, yeah, Eliot went.
Yeah.
What did you see at Carthage?
It's a long time ago. I have stuff on it there, but yeah, I was just interested because of doing Hannibal and the Punic Wars and Hannibal crossing the Alps,
Yeah.
and then the story of what do you call it? I can never think of it. What's the woman of Carthage?
Dido?
Dido, yeah,
Dido,
Dido and Aeneas, yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, but it was mainly Hannibal and the Punic Wars that drew me there, and how they fought the Romans, and how the Romans destroyed it. They said the Romans put salt into the ground so nothing would grow. They wiped it out completely, but to have remnants of there, from what I remember. I must look up the literature on it again.
Yeah, I didn't get over that far. I did go into Morocco,
Yeah,
and that was quite a time, I
yeah,
should say. I still have still lots of images from Morocco
yeah,
um, come in my mind.
yeah,
They had these aqueducts that were built that comes from the Atlas Mountains,
yeah,
and they dug these aqueducts so the water would come from the mountains, and the stream would be covered up so it wouldn't evaporate because
yeah,
the sun is very
Yeah.
intense there.
yeah,
And I can remember going down into an aqueduct to swim,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and here had 'cause this was in winter, so the sun wasn't too bad then, but it was quite an experience. Yeah. All right. I guess we are ready for Donna, if you would please.
Sure. I want to read from Canadian gentleman that would be well known, I think, most people. He started his life as a poet, but then became a singer-songwriter. And the person I'm referring to is Leonard Cohen.
Ah,
yeah,
And Tom mentioned him earlier and thought Tom was going to read from Leonard Cohen when he talked about dancing to the end of love. The collection that I have, the discussion at the start of this reading reminded me to go back to this introduction before I read from Leonard. And the introduction says, ever new, he has eroded an artificial boundary between poetry and song. An achievement is not merely old, but ancient. As ancient as Solomon of the Song of Songs, or David the Psalmist, as old as the French troubadours, whose ballads of courtly love and songs on metaphysical as well as vulgar and humorous themes proved an important foundation of modern poetry, and as old and mystical as St. John of the Cross's Dark Night of the Soul or St. Teresa of Avila, whose mystical transformations of love poetry are beacons of religious verse. So as started talking about Raftery and Philip, it prompted me to go back to that reference there. But moving on, poem that I want to read, Leonard was caught in a snowstorm in a hotel in the city of Edmonton. It was a small hotel, and when he went in there, he met two young female hitchhikers who were frozen with the cold and had nowhere to stay.
mhm.
Leonard fashion, he invited them to stay in his room. And they came to the room. There was one large double bed. They were frozen and immediately crashed out and went to sleep. And Leonard sat in a stuffed coat looking out at the Saskatchewan River and wrote as follows. And it's called Sisters of Mercy.
mm,
Oh, the Sisters of Mercy, they are not departed or gone. Were waiting for me when I thought that I just can't go on. They brought me their comfort, and later they brought me this song. Oh, I hope you run into them, you who've been traveling so long. You who must leave everything that you cannot control. Begins with your family, but soon comes round to you. So, where you're hanging, I think I see where you're pinned. You're not feeling holy. Your loneliness tells me you've sinned. They lay down beside me. I made my confession to them. They took my eyes, and I you on their hand. Life is a leaf. The seasons are often condemned. They would bind you with love that is graceful and green as the ground. When I left, they were sleeping. I hope you're not in them soon. Don't turn on the light. you can read their address by the moon. And you won't make me jealous if I hear that they sweetened your night. We weren't lovers like that. And besides, it would still be love.
Yeah.
Love. I would sing it to you, but I can't.
Yeah, the word it's a beautiful kind of thing. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's plenty of those. Yeah,
Loads of
and
them.
yeah. But even reading it there, Donna, it's a lot. It's a while since I heard the words. It's a lovely. It's lovely, and it's contained, and it tells the story, and it's lovely.
When I heard it first, when it referred to the Sisters of Mercy, I thought it was talking about nuns.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, I know.
This did I know it with two young female hitchhikers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've just finished reading a wonderful book on Leonard called I'm Your Man by Sylvie Simmons. I think she's the main biographer, and it's absolutely wonderful, and particularly as you get towards the end, because she interviews him many times, right up to the time he had finished his final tour, when he was suddenly he was bored, he had nothing to do. And I think he wrote something like 2 or 3 albums after he finished touring. Dance Me to the End of Love, I think, was it the name of an album, or it certainly was a tune, I know, from an
It's
album.
a song.
Mm-hmm.
It's a song, yeah. So, he was still very sharp, very bright, right up to 85.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I assume in the book it went into what happened to him, where he had kind of retired and was living the life of a monk.
Mount Baldy. In Mount
Excuse me?
Baldy. In
Well,
Mount
actually,
Baldy.
it was connected with Mount Baldy, but he had actually, as I remember the story, he had actually had a little place,
Little house.
maybe in New Mexico or Colorado or something, and he was, practicing his Zen Buddhism.
Right.
When he discovered that all of his money was stolen
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
was broke
By an employee, someone who was
Yeah.
supposed
by
to
his
be
manager, I think.
manager. Yeah.
Manager, book accountant. She was
Yeah.
looking after his money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Millions, yeah.
So, the good news was we got a couple more albums and tours out of it ourselves, but
Yeah, he
I
had
just
to
have
come
to
back.
laugh because the book that is actually next to me is Book of Longing, Leonard Cohen.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
And the chance that you started reading one of his poems, it's so funny.
The thing with that theft that was so impressive is that he never prosecuted the person, and that's why he went out on the tours. He had to make up money.
But she was prosecuted, not by
Was he?
him.
Okay.
She was, and
Okay.
he came to give evidence and said that he forgave her, and didn't understand why a friend would do this to him. So
Yeah.
he didn't want to press the prosecution,
I see.
and that's
Yeah.
before he made his money back on tour tenfold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful character.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He lived the life for himself. I would say that. I only saw him one time, and that was probably 65 or 66 when he came to Austin, Texas. And he had a very powerful effect on everybody that was in the audience.
He was a regular visit to Dublin, to Ireland, and he was on his last tours. He came here to a place that's called the Royal Hospital in Kilmainham. It's an outdoor venue, and I thought, having seen this, that it had fulfilled all my ambitions about listening to him. And then he came back and he played Sligo in. Can you remember the place, Tom? He concert in Sligo in a place in Lissadell, where
Lissadell.
Yeats had a big effect on him. And I got an opportunity to go to that and passed on it because I said it could not be as good as the previous concert. And
Yeah.
by all accounts, it was just as good. But fortunately, he came back a third time and played in Dublin. And I got to see that as well and brought my young son to
Oh my
experience it.
goodness.
They had a wonderful
Mm.
time. Yeah,
Oh my
so it was
goodness.
fantastic. And at that stage, you've probably seen the pictures. He was dressed in a dark suit, dark shirt and tie, and a fedora, a
Yeah,
black
his little
fedora.
hat on.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He was always taking it off and bowing to the audience. But also, for a man of his age, he was dancing around the stage. He was going down on his knees. He was in wonderful shape.
That's great. That's great.
There's a recording of that concert, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's also what he did in London. I think it may be an amalgam of something like 5 nights concerts that they put together into one. Called Songs from the Road.
Mm.
Well, since you are such a fan, Donna, let me ask you, have you listened to Jennifer Warnes'
Oh, yes.
album of singing
Yeah.
Leonard Cohen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Also Perla Batala. She came here last year. I went to see her. She was doing an homage to Leonard, and everything she sang was one of his songs. But these were wonderful singers, and the same with the two sisters, the twins that sang with them on tour, and also Sharon Robinson, another one. I'm concerned about running out of time for Anne, who hasn't given a contribution yet. So
you can carry on for another minute or so. We'll give her plenty of time. I don't think she's going to be reading a novel to us.
Okay. But yeah, I saw Jennifer Warren and I saw Perla Batala, and I obviously saw Sharon Robinson sing with them when he was on tour.
Okay.
And they were great collaborators.
Yeah. Great.
One of the other great collaborators of his was Anjani, and they were an item for some time. She used to live around the corner from him in Los Angeles, and she'd come around to his place, and they'd work on songs together.
Oh,
There was a huge difference in age, obviously, between them. Like over 20 years.
You're quite a fan, and I always liked Leonard throughout the years.
Yeah.
And maybe I should look up that autobiography or that biography you mentioned.
Yeah, Sylvie Simmons, I'm Your Man.
Sylvia Simmons.
Sylvie, Sylvie.
Oh, Sylvie.
Sylvie.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Well worth it.
Anne, are you
Yeah.
ready? Okay.
Okay. What happened to? Oh, hold on just a sec. Okay. Well, I have a short poem that I want to read. It's a Seamus Heaney poem. I'm trying to learn more about Seamus Heaney's work. This poem is called Route 110, and I'll read it. In a stained front buttoned shopcoat, sere brown piped with crimson, out of the classics bay into an aisle, smelling of dry rot and disinfectant, she emerges, absorbed in her coin count, eyes front, right hand at work, in the slack marsupial vent of her change pocket, thinking of what to charge for a used copy of the Aeneid 6. Dust breath bestirred in the cubicle mouth, I inhaled as she slid my purchase into a deckle-edged brown paper bag. That's the poem. And it seems simple, but the thing is, the beauty of it is the exact word that was chosen as description. Like in the second line, he describes the coat the shop owner is wearing as sear brown, piped with crimson. And I looked up sear, and it's an old English word that means dry or acrid, dried and withered. So in the second line, he's already describing the clerk exactly. The second stanza has the opening words of dry rot, and dry rot is decay of seasoned timber, and it's caused by a fungi that consumes the cellulose of wood, leaving a soft shell for which which is readily reduced to powder. So that's another image of this woman. She has a dry rot about her. And then the dry rot is also known for being for decaying from within, and it's caused by a resistance to new forces.
Mm.
And then in the let's see, when he's picking up the package he's purchasing, the book Aeneid, he describes it as it was placed in a deckle-edged brown paper bag. And deckle-edged is the frame around the edges of a mold used in making paper by hand. So it's like contained.
Yeah.
Oh, the other word in here that was interesting was marsupial. And marsupial is a word applied to kangaroos and other animals, which does not have a true placenta. And usually there's a pouch in the abdomen of the female, which serves to carry the young. So it's not a complete human female. Anyway, let me read the poem again because I just think these words are fabulous.
Okay, now that you've told us what the meaning of the key words, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, okay, so in a stained front buttoned shop coat, sear brown piped with crimson, out of the classics bay into an aisle, smelling of dry rot and disinfectant, she emerges, absorbed in her coin count, eyes front, right hand at work, in the slack marsupial vent of her change pocket, thinking what to charge for a used copy of Aeneid. Dust breath bestirred in the cubicle mouth I inhaled as she slid my purchase into a deckle-edge brown paper bag. It's that.
And I put up a thing there, phoebe.info.
Pardon me?
In the chat there, I put in the thing, Phoebe, FAWBIE.info, and that'll tell you everything about Seamus Heaney's poems.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh.
But to me, this is a poem. He's looking for an old book, Aeneid, tended by a woman who is like unaware of the importance of the book and is looking for the money. And
he did the Aeneid himself, didn't he?
I think that I think it's probably part of a longer poem. 110 was the bus that Heaney used to get from Belfast home to Derry. And he has that poem in his last poetry collection, The Human Chain. And he kind of he intercuts it with scenes from the Aeneid. He was fascinated by book 6 of the Aeneid.
Yeah.
And in fact, the last thing that the last book that he published was he translated the 6th book of the Aeneid, where Aeneas goes down to see his father, and he intercuts that into that poem he had written beforehand. But he translated book 6 of the Aeneid because he had a teacher when he was doing A levels. They were doing the ninth book of the Aeneid, and this I think McGonagall was his teacher's name. But every so often McGonagall would pause and he'd say, I wish we were doing book 6." And this stuck in Seamus Heaney's mind, and it was an effort to kind of pay homage to that teacher, and whatever that he translated the book 6 of the Aeneid, which I think was the last published work, complete work. He actually died before it was completely finished, but I think his daughter or maybe or somebody else. But he had written the preface, and he'd done most of the work, yeah. But that poem that you read is in his last, The Human Chain, which was the last collection of poems, and he was intercutting this thing of Aeneas and images from his own life and his journey, yeah.
So the book that he has that in is called The Human what?
The Human Chain.
Chain. As in link to
H-A-I-N,
the
yeah.
chain.
Yeah, and it's about his kind of family and his life, kind of, yeah, and but that 110, I think, is in that route. I think he calls it Route 110.
It is, yeah, Route 110
Yeah,
for Anna Rose.
yeah.
No, you've no sound, Donna.
Yeah, it sounds a little rough.
Your sound is completely off. No. No sound at all.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, but it's not coming through.
Sorry.
Well, anyway. Okay.
This has been an incredible set of readings today. Thank you so much, everybody.
It was brilliant, and
Yeah,
that's
it was great.
and finishing on that little piece you wrote. I think you read it really well. It was lovely, and also your enthusiasm for Heaney's just taking off, and I kind of envy you in a way. Yeah.
We went to the exhibit of Heaney's work at the what used to be the Parliament in
That's
in
right. Yeah,
Dublin.
the Bank of Ireland there. Yeah.
Yeah, we went to that, saw the
And it's the simple kind of desk that he had, just the planks. Yeah.
Mhm.
What do you had?
And-
2 planks on sawhorses?
Yeah, they were on what were they on? Kind of cabinets. They're kind of
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know.
planks of wood. Yeah.
The other thing that was interesting about the trip was seeing bog bodies, and he references that in his work. Bodies found in the bogs, the peat
Oh
bogs.
yeah. His poems. But yeah, that's right. Yeah. The he likens them to the kind of, they were tortured in that,
Yes.
when they found them, and I think he has one poem where he likens that to the troubles in Northern Ireland, where they tarred and feathered young women that would have consorted with the British soldiers. I think he's a poem kind of linking the two images of the bog people and the what was going on in Northern Ireland at the time. Yeah.
Oh my.
Well, congratulations.
Before we go, could I ask Joan, are those your ancestors up behind you on the wall there?
Oh, of course. Lord Nelson.
Be careful. Oh, there's the desk.
Oh, that's Seamus. Okay, yeah. file cabinets with a piece of some kind of wood on top. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. All righty. Well, we will say that this session is concluded, and next Monday, prepare your copies of Mrs. Dalloway,
Yeah.
because that's where we're going. So,
Thank you, Duncan.
Thanks,
Thanks
Duncan.
very
Yeah.
much.
very,
For
very
everything.
much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Everybody.